The Royal Air Force is the aerial warfare service branch of the British Armed Forces. Formed toward the end of the First World War on April 1, 1918, it is the oldest independent air force in the world. Following victory over the Central Powers in 1918, the RAF merged at the time the largest air force in the world. Since its formation, the RAF has taken a significant role in British military history, in particular, playing a large part in the Second World War where it fought its most famous campaign, the Battle of Britain. The RAF's mission is to support the objectives of the British Ministry of Defence, which are to provide the capabilities needed to ensure the security and defence of the United Kingdom and overseas territories, including against terrorism. To support the governmental unregistered trademark's foreign policy objectives, particularly in promoting international peace and security. The RAF describe its mission statement as to provide an agile, adaptable and capable air force that, person for person, is second to none, and that makes a decisive air power contribution in support of the UK defence mission. The mission statement is supported by the RAF's definition of air power, which guides its strategy. Air power is defined as the ability to project power from the air and space to influence the behaviour of people or the course of events. Today the Royal Air Force maintains an operational fleet of various types of aircraft, described by the RAF as being leading edge in terms of technology. This largely consists of fixed-wing aircraft, including fighter and strike aircraft, airborne early warning and control aircraft, ISTAR and SIGINT aircraft, aerial refueling aircraft and strategic and tactical transport aircraft. The majority of the RAF's rotary aircraft form part of the Tri-Service Joint Helicopter Command in support of ground forces. Most of the RAF's aircraft and personnel are based in the UK, with many others serving on operations or at long-established overseas bases. Although the RAF is the principal British air power arm, the Royal Navy's Fleet Air Arm and the British Army's Army Air Corps also deliver air power which is integrated into the maritime, littoral and land environments. History. Origins. While the British were not the first to make use of heavier-than-air military aircraft, the RAF is the world's oldest independent air force, that is, the first air force to become independent of Army or Navy control. It was founded on April 1, 1918, with headquarters located in the former Hotel Cecil, during the First World War, by the amalgamation of the Royal Flying Corps and the Royal Naval Air Service. At that time it was the largest air force in the world. After the war, the service was drastically cut and its interwar years were relatively quiet, with the RAF taking responsibility for the control of Iraq and executing a number of minor actions in other parts of the British Empire. The RAF's Naval Aviation Branch, the Fleet Air Arm, was founded in 1924 but handed over to Admiralty control on May 24, 1939. The RAF developed its doctrine of strategic bombing which led to the construction of long-range bombers and became the basic philosophy in the Second World War. Second World War. The RAF underwent rapid expansion prior to and during the Second World War. Under the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan of December 1939, the air forces of British Commonwealth countries trained and formed Article 15 squadrons for service with RAF formations. Many individual personnel from these countries, and exiles from occupied Europe, also served with RAF squadrons. By the end of the war the Royal Canadian Air Force had contributed more than 30 squadrons to serve in RAF formations. Similarly, approximately a quarter of Bomber Command's personnel were Canadian. Additionally, the Royal Australian Air Force represented around 9% of all RAF personnel who served in the European and Mediterranean theatres. In the Battle of Britain in 1940, the RAF defended the skies over Britain against the numerically superior German Luftwaffe. In what is perhaps the most prolonged and complicated air campaign in history, the Battle of Britain contributed significantly to the delay and subsequent indefinite postponement of Hitler's plans for an invasion of the United Kingdom. In the House of Commons on August 20, prompted by the ongoing efforts of the RAF, Prime Minister Winston Churchill eloquently made a speech to the nation, where he said never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. The largest RAF effort during the war was the strategic bombing campaign against Germany by Bomber Command. While RAF bombing of Germany began almost immediately upon the outbreak of war, under the leadership of Air Chief Marshal Harris, these attacks became increasingly devastating from 1942 onward as new technology and greater numbers of superior aircraft became available. The RAF adopted nighttime area bombing on German cities such as Hamburg and Dresden, and developed precision bombing techniques for specific operations, such as the Dambusters raid by No. 617 Squadron, or the Amiens prison raid known as Operation Jericho. Cold War era. Following victory in the Second World War, the RAF underwent significant reorganization, as technological advances in air warfare saw the arrival of jet fighters and bombers. During the early stages of the Cold War, one of the first major operations undertook by the Royal Air Force was in 1948 and the Berlin airlift, codenamed Operation Plainfire. Between June 26 and the lifting of the Russian blockade of the city on May 2, the RAF provided 17% of the total supplies delivered during the event, using Avro Yorks, Douglas Dakotas flying to Gatto Airport and Short Sunderlands flying to Lake Havel. Before Britain developed its own nuclear weapons, the RAF was provided with American nuclear weapons under Project E. However, following the development of its own arsenal, the British government elected on February 16, 1960 to share the country's nuclear deterrent between the RAF and submarines of the Royal Navy, first deciding on April 13 to concentrate solely on the Air Force's V-bomber fleet. These were initially armed with nuclear gravity bombs, later being equipped with a Blue Steel missile. Following the development of the Royal Navy's Polaris submarines, the strategic nuclear deterrent passed to the Navy's submarines on June 30, 1969. With the introduction of Polaris, the RAF's strategic nuclear role was reduced to a tactical one, using the WE-177 gravity bombs. This tactical role was continued by the V-bombers into the 1980s and until 1998 by Tornado GA-1S. For much of the Cold War, the primary role of the RAF was the defense of Western Europe against potential attack by the Soviet Union, with many squadrons based in West Germany. With the decline of the British Empire, global operations were scaled back, and RAF Far East Air Force was disbanded on October 31, 1971. Despite this, the RAF fought in many battles in the Cold War period. In June 1948, the RAF commenced Operation Firedog against Malayan terrorists during the Malayan Emergency. Operations continued for the next 12 years until 1960 with aircraft flying out of RAF Tenga and RAF Butterworth. The RAF played a minor role in the Korean War, with flying boats taking part. From 1953 to 1956, the RAF Avro Lincoln squadrons carried out anti-Mau Mau operations in Kenya using its base at RAF Eastleigh. The Suez Crisis in 1956 saw a large RAF role, with aircraft operating from RAF Equatorial and RAF Nicosia on Cyprus and RAF Luke and RAF Al-Far on Malta as part of Operation Musketeer. The confrontation against Indonesia in the early 1960s did see use of RAF aircraft, but due to a combination of deft diplomacy and selective ignoring of certain events by both sides, it never developed into a full-scale war. One of the largest actions undertaken by the RAF during the Cold War was the air campaign during the 1982 Falklands War, in which the RAF operated alongside the Fleet Air Arm. During the war, RAF aircraft were deployed in the mid-Atlantic at RAF Ascension Island, and a detachment from No. 1 Squadron was deployed with the Royal Navy, operating from the aircraft carrier HMS Hermes. RAF pilots also flew missions using the Royal Navy's Sea Harriers in the air-to-air combat role. Following a British victory, the RAF remained in the South Atlantic to provide air defence to the Falkland Islands, based at RAF Mount Pleasant. Recent history. With the end of the Cold War and the collapse of the Soviet Union, the RAF's focus has returned to delivering expeditionary air power. Since 1990, the RAF has been involved in several large-scale operations, including the 1991 Gulf War, the 1999 Kosovo War, the 2001 Euro-present war in Afghanistan, the 2003 invasion and war in Iraq, and most recently the 2011 intervention in Libya. The RAF's 90th anniversary was commemorated on April 1, 2008 by a flypast of 9 Red Arrows and 4 Typhoons along the Thames, in a straight line from just south of London City Airport Tower Bridge, the London Eye, the RAF Memorial and the Ministry of Defence building. 4 major defence reviews have been conducted since the end of the Cold War: the 1990 Options for Change, the 1998 Strategic Defence Review, the 2003 Delivering Security in a Changing World, and the 2010 Strategic Defence and Security Review. All 4 defence reviews have resulted in steady reductions in manpower and numbers of aircraft, especially combat aircraft such as fast jets. As part of the latest 2010 Strategic Defence and Security Review, the BAE Systems Nimrod MRA-4 maritime patrol aircraft was cancelled due to overspending and missing deadlines. Other reductions saw total RAF manpower reduced by 5,000 personnel to a trained strength of 33,000, and the early retirement of the Joint Force Harrier aircraft, the Harrier GR7 per Grain 9. In recent years, fighter aircraft on quick reaction alert have been increasingly required to scramble in response to efforts made by the Russian Air Force to approach British airspace. On January 24, 2014, in the Houses of Parliament, Conservative MP and Minister of State for the Armed Forces, Andrew Robotham, announced that the RAF's QRA force had been scrambled almost 30 times in the last 3 years, 11 times during 2010. 10 times during 2011 and 8 times during 2012. RAF Coningsby in Lincolnshire and RAF Lucas in Fife both provide Quick Reaction Alert, or QRA, and scramble their fighter jets within minutes to meet or intercept aircraft which give cause for concern. Lucas generally covers the northern sector, while Coningsby provides QRA in the south. Typhoon pilot Flight Lieutenant Noel Rees describes how QRA duty works. At the start of the scaled QRA response, civilian air traffic controllers might see on their screens an aircraft behaving erratically, not responding to their radio calls, or note that ETA unregistered trademark S transmitting a distress signal through its transponder. Rather than scramble Typhoons at the first hint of something abnormal, a controller has the option to put them on a higher level of alert, a call to cockpit unregistered trademark. In this scenario, the pilot races to the hardened aircraft shelter and does everything short of starting his engines. Structure: the professional head of the RAF is the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal Sir Andrew Pulford. The CAS heads the Air Force Board, which is a committee of the Defence Council. The Air Force Board is the management board of the RAF and consists of several high-ranking officers. Command: authority is delegated from the Air Force Board to the RAF's command. While there were once individual commands responsible for bombers, fighters, training, etc., now only the Air Command exists, headquartered at RAF High Wycombe. Groups: groups are the subdivisions of operational commands. These are responsible for certain types of operation or for operations in limited geographical areas. As from April 1, 2007, 3 groups exist. 1 group controls the RAF's combat fast jet aircraft in the following stations: RAF Odiham, RAF Benson, RAF Leeming, RAF Coningsby, RAF Lucas, RAF Wittering, RAF Marham and RAF Lossiemouth in the UK, in addition to RAF Unit Goose Bay in Canada, which is used extensively as an operational training base. The RAF's electronic warfare tactics range at RAF Spededam in Cumbria, is also within its sphere of responsibility. 2 Group controls the strategic and tactical air transport aircraft, the RAF Regiment, the RAF's air-to-air refueling aircraft, as well as intelligence, surveillance, target acquisition, and reconnaissance and search and rescue assets. 22 Group, responsible for recruiting, personnel management and training. In addition, No. 83 Expeditionary Air Group, under the command of the Permanent Joint Headquarters, based at RAF Al-Udeid, is active in the Middle East, currently supporting operations over Afghanistan. The Expeditionary Air Group also supported operation over Iraq. Stations: An RAF station is ordinarily subordinate to a group and it is administratively subdivided into wings. Since the mid to late 1930s, RAF stations have controlled a number of flying squadrons or other units at one location by means of a station headquarters. Wings. A wing is either an operational subdivision of a group or an administrative subdivision of an RAF station. Independent wings are a grouping of two or more squadrons, either flying squadrons or ground support squadrons. In former times, numbered flying wings have existed, but recently they have been created only when required. For example, during Operation Telek, Tornado GR4 wings were formed to operate from Ali Al Salim and Al Udeid air bases and the Tornado F3 equipped Lucas fighter wing at Prince Sultan Air Base. Each of these were made up of aircraft and crews from several squadrons. On March 31, 2006, the RAF formed 9 Expeditionary Air Wings to support operations. They were established at the 9 main operating bases: RAF Coningsby, RAF Cottesmore, RAF Kinloss, RAF Leeming, RAF Lucas, RAF Lossiemouth, RAF Linium, RAF Marham and RAF Waddington, numbered Nos 121, 122, 325, 135, 125, 140, 38, 138 and 34 EAWs respectively. These units are commanded by a group captain who is also the parent unit's station commander. The EAW comprises the non-formed unit elements of the station that are required to support a deployed operating base, that is the command and control, logistics and administration functions amongst others. They are designed to be flexible and quickly adaptable for differing operations. They are independent of flying squadrons, air combat support units and air combat service support units who were attached to the EAW depending on the task it has been assigned. A wing is also an administrative subdivision of an RAF station. Historically, for a flying station these were normally Operations Wing, Engineering Wing and Administration Wing, and each wing was commanded by an officer of wing commander rank. Early in the 21st century, the model changed, with Engineering Wing typically being split into Forward Support Wing and Depth Support Wing, while Administration Wing was redesignated Base Support Wing. Squadrons. A flying squadron is an aircraft unit which carries out the primary tasks of the RAF. RAF squadrons are somewhat analogous to the regiments of the British Army in that they have histories and traditions going back to their formation, regardless of where they are based, which aircraft they are operating, etc. They can be awarded standards and battle honours for meritorious service. Whilst every squadron is different, most flying squadrons are commanded by a wing commander and, for a fast jet squadron, have an establishment of around 100 personnel and 12 aircraft. The term squadron can be used to refer to a subunit of an administrative wing or small RAF station, for example Air Traffic Control Squadron, Personnel Management Squadron, etc. There are also ground support squadrons, for example, No. 2 Squadron, which is located at RAF Wittering. Administrative squadrons are normally commanded by a squadron leader. Flights. A flight is a subdivision of a squadron. Flying squadrons are often divided into 2 flights, for example, A and B, each under the command of a squadron leader. Administrative squadrons on a station are also divided into flights, and these flights are commanded by a junior officer, often a flight lieutenant. Because of their small size, there are several flying units formed as flights rather than squadrons. For example, No. 1435 flight is based at RAF Mount Pleasant in the Falkland Islands, maintaining air defense cover with 4 Eurofighter Typhoon aircraft. Personnel. At its height in 1944 during the Second World War, more than 1,100,000 personnel were serving in the RAF. The longest-lived founding member of the RAF was Henry Allingham, who died on July 18, 2009 aged 113. As of December 1, 2013, the Royal Air Force numbered some 35,660 regular and 1,540 Royal Auxiliary Air Force personnel, giving a combined component strength of 37,200 personnel. In addition to the active elements of the Royal Air Force, all ex-regular personnel remain liable to be recalled for duty in a time of need. This is known as the Regular Reserve. In 2007 there were 33,980 regular reserves of the Royal Air Force, of which 7,950 served under a fixed-term reserve contract. Publications since April 2013 no longer report the entire strength of the regular reserve, instead they only give a figure for regular reserves who serve under a fixed-term reserve contract. They had a strength of 7,160 personnel in 2013. The RAF Volunteer Reserve is another reserve element of the RAF, however unlike the ones described above, they have no call-up liability. Instead, they are responsible for the management and operation of the Air Training Corps, Combined Cadet Force RAF sections, volunteer gliding squadrons, air experience flights, University Air Squadron and the Defense Technical Undergraduate Scheme. Figures from 2010 showed that Royal Air Force pilots achieve a relatively high number of flying hours per year when compared with other major NATO allies such as France and Germany. RAF fast jet pilots achieve 210 flying hours per year, while RAF transport and aerial refueling pilots achieve 290 flying hours per year. In addition, RAF pilots on transport and support helicopters achieve 240 flying hours per year. French and German Air Force pilots achieved only 180 and 150 flying hours across their fleets respectively. Officers. Officers hold a commission from the sovereign, which provides the legal authority for them to issue orders to subordinates. The commission of a regular officer is granted after successfully completing the 32-week-long initial officer training course at the RAF College, Cranwell, Lincolnshire. Other officers also train at RAF Cranwell, but on different courses, such as those for professionally qualified officers. The titles and insignia of RAF officers were chiefly derived from those used by the Royal Navy, specifically the Royal Naval Air Service during World War I. For example, the rank of squadron leader derived its name from the RNAS rank of squadron commander. RAF officers fall into three categories: air officers, senior officers and junior officers. Other ranks. Other ranks attend the recruit training squadron at RAF Halton for basic training, with the exception of the RAF Regiment, which trains its recruits at RAF Honington. The titles and insignia of other ranks in the RAF were based on that of the Army, with some alterations in terminology. Over the years, this structure has seen significant changes. For example, there was once a separate system for those in technical trades, and the ranks of chief technician and junior technician continue to be held only by personnel in technical trades. RAF other ranks fall into four categories: warrant officers, senior non-commissioned officers, junior non-commissioned officers and airmen. All warrant officers in the RAF are equal in terms of rank, but the most senior non-commissioned appointment is known as the Chief of the Air Staff's warrant officer. Branches and trades. RAF pilots and weapon systems officers are commissioned officers of the flying branch, that is FG, P, or FG, WSO. Formerly in the General Duties Branch, which is now reserved for wing commanders and above from any previous branch. Non-commissioned aircrew known as weapons system operators, fulfill the specialist roles of air engineer, air electronics operator, air load master and air signaller. Though they are now known collectively as weapon systems operators, individual trade specializations remain. Commissioned officer specialists are promoted from within branch to become FG, WSO. The majority of the members of the RAF serve in support roles on the ground. Engineering officers and technicians are employed to maintain and repair the equipment used by the RAF. This includes routine preparation for flight and maintenance on aircraft, arming aircraft with weapons, as well as deeper-level repair work on aircraft systems, IT systems, ground-based radar, vehicles, ground support equipment, etc. RAF flight operations officers are involved with the planning and coordination of all flying operations. Flight operations officers can be found in every RAF flying station and squadron. The RAF Regiment is the RAF's infantry unit. Its officers and gunners defend RAF airfields from attack. The RAF regiment is also responsible for CBRN defense and training the rest of the RAF in ground defense. Aerospace battle managers and air traffic controllers control RAF and NATO aircraft from the ground. The FC control the interception of enemy aircraft while the ATC provide air traffic services at RAF stations and to the majority of en route military aircraft in UK airspace. RAF intelligence officers and intelligence the analysts support all operational activities by providing timely and accurate indicators and warnings. They conduct detailed all-source military intelligence fusion and analysis by utilizing classified and open-source information including imagery, human and communications intelligence. Intelligence is used to inform commanders of the assessed capabilities and intentions of the enemy for strategic/operational planning and targeting. They also tailor the information to brief air crews for mission planning and other tactical units for force protection. RAF Medical Branch provides healthcare at home and on deployed operations, including aeromedical evacuation services. Medical officers are the doctors of the RAF and have specialist expertise in aviation medicine to support aircrew and their protective equipment. Medical officers can go on aeromedical evacuations, providing vital assistance on search and rescue missions or emergency relief flights worldwide. RAF medical officers are either based in primary care on operations or on RAF stations in the UK or in one of 6 Ministry of Defence hospital units around the UK as specialist practitioners. Administrative officers and associated PAS-admin trades are involved with human resources management, training management, physical education, catering, infrastructure management, accounts, dress and discipline, personnel and recruitment. RAF Chaplains Branch provides spiritual and moral support for RAF personnel and their families. RAF Legal Branch provides legal advice on discipline/criminal law and operations law. RAF Police are the military police of the RAF. Specialist training and education. The Royal Air Force operates several units and centres for the provision of non-generic training and education. These include the Royal Air Force Leadership Centre and the Royal Air Force Centre for Air Power Studies, both based at RAF Cranwell, and the Air Warfare Centre, based at RAF Waddington and RAF Cranwell. NCO training and developmental courses occur at RAF Halton and officer courses occur at the Joint Services Command and Staff College at Shrevenham. Aircraft. British military aircraft designations generally comprise a type name followed by a mark number which includes an alphabetical RALA prefix. For example, the Typhoon F2 is designated as a fighter by the F, and the second variant of the type to be produced. Air defence and strike aircraft. The Eurofighter Typhoon FGR-4 is the RAF's only air defence fighter aircraft, with a total of 6 squadrons based across RAF Lucas, RAF Lossiemouth and RAF Coningsby, following the retirement of the Panavia Tornado F3 in late March 2011. Their task is to defend UK airspace. In October 2007 it was announced that MOD Boscombe Down, RNAS Culdrose and RAF Marham would also be used as quick reaction alert bases from early 2008, offering around-the-clock fighter coverage for the south and southwest of UK airspace when a direct threat has been identified. The RAF has 4 frontline and 2 reserve Typhoon units. 3 Squadron, 11 Squadron, 17 Squadron and 29 Squadron based at RAF Coningsby, with 6 Squadron based at RAF Lossiemouth and 1 Squadron based at RAF Lucas. The mainstay of the strike fleet are the 4 squadrons of Tornado GR-4S. These supersonic aircraft can carry a wide range of weaponry, including Storm Shadow cruise missiles, laser-guided bombs and the Alarm anti-radar missile. Since June 2008, the Eurofighter Typhoon FGR-4 has also been capable of being deployed operationally in the air-to-ground role. The RAF has 3 operational Tornado units, with 2 Squadron, 9 Squadron and 31 Squadron based at RAF Marham. RAF Lossiemouth is home to the Reserve 15 Squadron. The Tornado was previously supplemented by the Harrier GR-7 per Grade 9 in the strike and close air support roles, and to counter enemy air defences. The Harrier fleet was withdrawn in December 2010 following the Strategic Defence and Security Review. The Tornado GR4 is due to retire in March 31, 2019 and be replaced by the Eurofighter Typhoon and F-35 Lightning II. Airborne Early Warning and Reconnaissance Aircraft, the Sentry AEW-1, based at RAF Waddington, provides airborne early warning to detect incoming enemy aircraft and to coordinate the aerial battlefield. The Sentinel-1 provides a ground radar surveillance platform based on the Bombardier Global Express long-range business jet. These were supplemented in 2009 by 4 Beechcraft Shadow 1 aircraft equipped for the ISTAR role over Afghanistan. The Tornado GR-4A is fitted with cameras and sensors in the visual, infrared and radar ranges of the spectrum. 10 MQ-9 Reaper unmanned aerial vehicles have been purchased to support operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. They are operated by No. 39 Squadron RAF based at Creech Air Force Base and 13 Squadron at RAF Waddington. 5 Britten Norman Islanders are operated by the Station Flight of RAF Northolt, involved in photographic mapping and light communications roles. 3 Boeing RC-135W Rivet Joint have been ordered to replace the Nimrod A-1 fleet in the signals intelligence role in 2014. The Nimrod fleet was retired in 2011, and the RAF will share signals aircraft of the U.S. Air Force until the RC-135s enter service. The aircraft will be Boeing KC-135 Stratotanker tankers converted to RC-135W standard in the most complex combined foreign military sales case and cooperative support arrangement that the UK has undertaken with the United States Air Force since the Second World War. In RAF service, they will be known as the Air Seeker. Support helicopters. An important part of the work of the RAF is to support the British Army by ferrying troops and equipment at the battlefield. However, RAF helicopters are also used in a variety of other roles, including support of RAF ground units and heavy lift support for the Royal Marines. The support helicopters are organised into the Tri-Service Joint Helicopter Command, along with helicopters of the British Army and Royal Navy. The only helicopters not coordinated by the JHC are the search and rescue helicopters of the RAF and RN, and those RN helicopters that are normally based on board a ship such as a destroyer or frigate. The large twin-rotor Chinook HC2/HC2A, based at RAF Odin, provides heavy lift support and is supported by the Merlin HC3 and the smaller Puma HC1 medium-lift helicopters, based at RAF Benson and RAF Aldergrove. Transport and air-to-air refueling aircraft. The RAF operate the C-17 Globemaster III in the heavy strategic airlift role, originally leasing 4 from Boeing. These were purchased, followed by a 5th delivered on April 7, 2008 and a 6th delivered on June 8, 2008. The new aircraft entered frontline use within days rather than weeks. The MOD said there was a stated departmental requirement for 8 C-17s and a 7th was subsequently ordered, to be delivered in December 2010. In February 2012 the purchase of an 8th C-17 was confirmed. The aircraft arrived at RAF Brize Norton in May 2012. More routine strategic airlift transport tasks are carried out by the Airbus A330 MRTT, known as the Voyager in RAF service. The first Voyager arrived in the UK for testing at MOD Boscombe Down in April 2011, and entered service in April 2012. The Voyager received approval from the MOD on May 16, 2013 to begin air-to-air refueling flights and made its first operational tanker flight on May 20, 2013 as part of a training sortie with Tornado GR4S. By May 21, 2013, the Voyager fleet had carried over 50,000 passengers and carried over 3,000 tons of cargo. A total of 14 Voyagers are due to form the fleet, with 9 allocated to sole RAF use. As the Voyagers lack a refueling boom, the RAF has requested a Memorandum of Understanding with the USAF allowing the UK access to tankers equipped with refueling booms for its Boeing RC-135W Seeker SIGINT aircraft. Shorter range, tactical airlift transport is provided by the Hercules, the fleet including both older C-130K and newer C-130J variants, based at RAF Brize Norton in Oxfordshire. All C-130s will be withdrawn by 2022. No. 32 Squadron replaced the Queen's Flight in 1995 and operate the Barra 125cc's 3, Augusta A109 and Barra 146cc's 2 in the general air transport and VIP transport roles. The squadron is based at RAF Northolt in West London. Aircraft operate with a priority for military needs over VIP transport. 2 additional Barra 146s were purchased in March 2012 from TNT Airways and were refitted by Hawker Beechcraft on behalf of BAE Systems for tactical freight and personal transport use. The aircraft, designated as the Barra 146C Mk3, arrived in Afghanistan in April 2013. Search and rescue aircraft. 3 squadrons of helicopters exist with a primary role of military search and rescue. The rescuing of aircrew who have ejected or crash-landed their aircraft. These are 22 Squadron and 202 Squadron with a Sea King HAR-3/HAR-3A in the UK and 84 Squadron with a Griffin HAR-2 in Cyprus. Although established with a primary role of military search and rescue, most of their operational missions are spent in their secondary role of conducting civil search and rescue. That is, the rescue of civilians from the sea, on mountainsides and other locations. Both rescue roles are shared with the Sea King helicopters of the Royal Navy's Fleet Air Arm, while the civil search and rescue role is also shared with the helicopters of HM Coast Guard. The operational conversion unit is 203 Squadron RAF based at RAF Valley equipped with a Sea King HAR-3. The related Royal Air Force Mountain Rescue Service comprises 4 teams of trained mountaineers stationed in the mainland United Kingdom, first established in 1943. Training aircraft, elementary flying training is conducted on the Tutor T-1. The Tutor is also used, along with the Viking T-1 and Vigilant T-1 gliders, to provide air experience training for air cadets and elementary flying training for trainee RAF pilots. Basic pilot training for fixed-wing and helicopter pilots is provided on the Tucano T-1 and Squirrel Heights 1. Weapons Systems Officer and Weapon Systems Operator training was conducted in the Domini T-1 until the decommissioning of the last 6 Domini T-1 in January 2011. Advanced flying training for fast jet, helicopter and multi-engine pilots is provided using the Hawk T-1, Griffin Heights 1 and B-200 King Air respectively. At the more advanced stage in training, variants of frontline aircraft have been adapted for operational conversion of trained pilots, such as the Typhoon T-1. Future aircraft. The Airbus A400M will replace the RAF's fleet of Hercules C-1 Picarat 3 transport aircraft. Originally, 25 aircraft were ordered, although the total is now 22. The A400M will be known as the Atlas in RAF service. The F-35B Lightning II is intended to enter service around 2020 under the Joint Combat Aircraft Program. Although the short takeoff vertical landing F-35B version had been selected initially, in October 2010, David Cameron announced that the UK would change their order to the F-35C Catobah carrier variant for both the RAF and Navy, citing greater range and the ability to carry a larger and more diverse payload than the F-35B. However, in May 2012, it was announced that the UK government had reverted to the previous government's plan to operate the F-35B STOVL variant, due to rising estimated shipbuilding costs associated with the F-35C, and an earlier estimated in-service date for the F-35B. On July 19, 2012, the Defence Secretary, Philip Hammond, in a speech in the USA, indicated that the UK would initially receive 48 F-35B and would announce at a later date what the final numbers would be. John Thompson, MOD Permanent Secretary, told the House of Commons Defence Select Committee, in late 2012, "Our commitment over the first 10 years is for 48 F-35B. An order for the first 14 aircraft on top of the 4 already procured for operational test and evaluation is expected later in 2013. The F-35 is expected to replace the Eurofighter and become Britain's only manned jet fighter from 2030. Project Taranis is a technology demonstrator program, possibly leading to a future strategic unmanned combat aerial vehicle for both ground attack and reconnaissance roles. The BAE Mantis is another UCAV under development, with an autonomous capability, allowing it to fly itself through an entire mission. This is a potential candidate to fulfill a requirement for an ISTAR UAV to enter service after 2015 as part of the RAF Scavenger program. Symbols, flags, emblems and uniform. Following the tradition of the other British fighting services, the RAF has adopted symbols to represent it, act as a rallying point for its members and encourage esprit de corps. The RAF ensign is flown from the flagstaff on every RAF station during daylight hours. The design was approved by King George V in 1921, after much opposition from the Admiralty, who have the right to approve or veto any flag flown ashore or on board ship. British aircraft in the early stages of the First World War carried the Union flag as an identifying feature, however this was easy to confuse with Germany's Iron Cross motif. Therefore in October 1914 the French system of 3 concentric rings was adopted, with the colours reversed to a red disc surrounded by a white ring and an outer blue ring. The relative sizes of the rings have changed over the years and during World War II an outer yellow ring was added. Aircraft serving in the Far East during World War II had the red disc removed to prevent confusion with Japanese aircraft. Since the 1970s, camouflaged aircraft carry low-visibility roundels either red and blue on dark camouflage, or washed-out pink and light blue on light colors. Most uncamouflaged training and transport aircraft retain the traditional red-white-blue roundel. The Latin motto of the RAF, Per ardua ad astra, is usually translated as through adversity to the stars, but the RAF's official translation is through struggle to the stars. The choice of motto is attributed to a junior officer named J.S. Ewell, in response to a request from a commander of the RFC, Colonel Sykes, for suggestions. The RAF inherited the motto from the RFC. The badge of the Royal Air Force was first used in August 1918. In heraldic terms it is, in front of a circle inscribed with the motto Per ardua ad astra and ensigned by the imperial crown an eagle volant and a fronty head lowered to the sinister. Although there have been debates among airmen over the years whether the bird was originally meant to be an albatross or an eagle, the consensus is that it was always an eagle. In 2006 the RAF adopted a logotype featuring a roundel and the service's unabbreviated name. The logotype is used on all correspondence and publicity material and aims to provide the service with a single, universally recognizable brand identity. Ceremonial functions and display, Red Arrows. The Red Arrows, officially known as the Royal Air Force Aerobatic Team, is the aerobatics display team of the Royal Air Force based at RAF Scampton, with under-review plans to move to RAF Waddington. The team was formed in late 1964 as an all-RAF team, replacing a number of unofficial teams that had been sponsored by RAF commands. The Red Arrows badge shows the aircraft in their trademark Diamond 9 formation, with the motto of Per mille éclat, a French word meaning brilliance, or excellence. Initially, they were equipped with 7 Folland Gnat trainers inherited from the RAF Yelljacks display team. This aircraft was chosen because it was less expensive to operate than frontline fighters. In their first season, they flew at 65 shows across Europe. In 1966, the team was increased to 9 members, enabling them to develop their Diamond 9 formation. In late 1979, they switched to the BAE Hawk trainer. The Red Arrows have performed over 4,000 displays worldwide in 53 countries. Royal Air Force Music. Headquarters Royal Air Force Music Services, located at RAF Northolt, supports 177 professional musicians who attend events around the globe in support of the RAF. RAF Music Services were established in 1921, although the first RAF Director of Music was appointed in 1918. The music services were expanded for World War II and in the post-war years there were 10 established bands. Since then, music services has gradually been reduced in size and today comprises, Headquarters Music Services, Central Band of the Royal Air Force, Band of the Royal Air Force College, Band of the Royal Air Force Regiment, Overseas Deployments. The current or regular overseas deployments of the Royal Air Force are as follows. The following is an incomplete list of previous deployments, see also. Air Training Corps, Army Air Corps, Fleet Air Arm, History of the Royal Air Force, List of active United Kingdom military aircraft, List of military aircraft operational during World War II, List of Royal Air Force stations, RAF News, References, Citations. Bibliography, International Institute for Strategic Studies. Hackett, James. The Military Balance 2010. London, Routledge. ISBN A1-85743-557-5. Shores, Christopher. Finnish Air Force, 1918–1968. Reading, Berkshire, UK, Osprey Publications Limited. ISBN A0-85045-012-8. External links, Official website, RAF History, RAF Links, RAF Careers. RAF Reservist Support Service, RAF Museum, RAF Benevolent Fund, WWII, in praise of the RAF. A Euro-image slideshow by Life magazine, video clips, the RAF channel on YouTube.